The effects of childhood abuse can often follow women into adulthood. Here to discuss how men might prepare to help a loved one through their suffering is Dawn Scott Jones. Thank you so much for joining us today on Harvest.
Thank you.
And you have a powerful story, so let's kind of maybe start with the story and then go from there.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on today. And I want to tell my story, not because it's all rare and unique. It's unique to me, but unfortunately, because it's all too common. And I thought if I shared my story, I might be able to offer some hope and some help. But I was raised in a Christian home and went to church regularly and just knew that there was a God and everything was warm and wonderful in my life, it seemed. And then one day, that was all interrupted when my childhood hero became a perpetrator and my father became an abuser. My earliest recollection is that somehow something changed. I don't have full memory. That's one of the insidious things about childhood abuse. You can't always take it and process all of it. But suddenly I remember being a little girl that just felt very shameful and very alone. I had a secret that I couldn't share with anyone. I didn't know where to go or where to turn, and so I just began to kind of withdraw as you never knew what night it might be that that door of your bedroom would open up and my dad would be there.
Now, as you started to repress this, did it maybe start to come out in different ways where maybe, you would act out in ways that maybe you wouldn't have before?
Oh, certainly. Certainly there's a lot of acting out. Not in behavior. I was a very compliant child and those kinds of things, not in a defiance and a rebellion. But certainly I was very angry at God. I thought, what kind of God? What kind of, we're going to church and we're singing about a Lord that's there for you. He wasn't there for me. So first of all, I was very angry with God and I wasn't interested in Christianity whatsoever. And there was a lot of dichotomy. I mean, I knew my dad, I knew the secret, but I also watched my dad lead the song service and be the worship leader and teach Sunday school. He was a very talented, gifted man, but a troubled man with a stronghold of the enemy in his own life. So I was angry at the Lord, and there was an inner rebellion that started that, I was a tough girl, don't try to tell me anything, don't try to...
Maybe almost like a reflex.
It was, and I was strong, and I wasn't going to cry, and I wasn't going to feel anything, and so I stuffed emotions. Behaviorally, I acted out a little bit as I became a teenager, and was promiscuous, and had no career goals, no drive in life to achieve. My biggest goal was, I'm going to get married and get out of the house.
So how did you get from where you were to where you are now, where you can come on television and speak about it, where you can write books about it, and where you appear to have your life in order, at least as much as any of us appear to have our life in order?
Well, if I look like I'm in order, that's good. I'm happy about that. Hallelujah. The Lord is such a healer, and I really was on a journey. When I got married at 19 and I had my first baby right away and then a second daughter right away and then a son later, I did not realize, I thought it's over, sexual abuse is done, I don't ever have to talk about it again. I had no idea, no clue, could not connect the dots of how childhood abuse would travel with me throughout my adult life. And it really started working havoc, destroyed my marriage, and the trust issues, intimacy issues, they were all very real. And I just remember thinking, I need a solution. Something has to change in my life. Still not willing to understand that it was sexual abuse. But I met God. And the Lord revealed himself to me again and never let loose of my life. God is so faithful. And I gave my life back to the Lord. And that's when the healing journey began. As I started trusting the Lord, because when your father is your abuser, you have a hard time seeing God, your father, as someone who loves you and will protect you and will champion you. You feel like he's not worthy of trust either. And so I couldn't fully give myself to the Lord.
And what you've written about here is not just your experience, but giving advice to men
Yes.
on how to help women, who have gone through this. So what are some of the tips that you would have for guys who maybe they don't even know it,
Sure. And as you say that, I can just hear men, oh, great, all we need is more advice from another woman. Beautiful.
Men need a lot of advice, trust me.
You said that, Drew, so I'm going to go with that. In my marriage, I was married for 27 years and unfortunately ended, and not that I desired that, but that was the choice my husband made. But so often I would cry and I said, I wish someone would help me. I wish someone would speak to him and help him understand what I'm going through. There needed to be a voice for me. I couldn't articulate it myself. Mm-hmm. When God called me into the ministry and I went through, my credentialing and became ordained with the assemblies, I started ministering to women and teaching and doing counseling, and I realized that need still existed, not now just for me, but for the women I was working with, that if I could get a hold of their husband, if I could just speak to him, I could share, and hopefully understanding would bring empowerment that you are married to a special needs wife. You have to understand what's gone on in her life. Mm-hmm. She doesn't even understand it. And so I wanted to get the dialogue going. Advice for men. Well, first of all, read the book. I hope that it's a helpful tool. I hear that it is. And I go through and the book is divided into 3 parts. How to understand the survivor, understand her fears, her trauma, understand broken trust, understand nightmares and flashbacks and touching, understand that she's a broken woman. Mm-hmm. Then there's a healing process that you can join her in.
Yeah.
How to walk with her in the healing process, become an ally in the healing. Also understand that you're probably the second victim of her childhood abuse, and somehow she could have twisted that now you're the new perpetrator and she's afraid of you. Lots of rage with survivors. So we walk through a lot of that.
Now, unfortunately, as you mentioned at the start, this is not an uncommon problem. Yeah. I believe stats show that even as many as 1 in 3 girls could be victims of sexual abuse. Yet I have the feeling, because they have difficulty talking about, there are many husbands who probably don't even know their wife was a victim of sexual abuse. How can a husband even broach that subject?
Yeah.
Yes, that's so true. And I address that in the back of the book. If you think your wife is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, read it and I'll share with you ways you can approach her. But if she's not opened up and shared that with you, that means she fears your rejection. She fears your abandonment. And so if a husband can begin to share with her, I love you, no matter what you say to me, will not change that. I'm with you. I'll never leave you. And begin to make her feel secure in their relationship. But I'm also finding that wives are reading the book and able to highlight some areas, and they're offering it to their husband as a way of being able to share for the very first time, or at least in a more in-depth way, to say, this is my story, this is what happened to me, would you read this, and then can we talk? Yeah. And so I'm so thankful that it's becoming a dialogue tool that opens up their communication. But you can tell there are certain things that you might have with a wife. The rage is one of them. She can be a sweet, wonderful woman, but all of a sudden she can unleash on you. It can be a world of ups and downs. One minute she wants you close and wants to snuggle, and the next minute you go to touch her and she's pushing you away and rejecting you. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, don't leave me, get away, the push and pull. There are certain things.
And certainly this is obviously written from a woman's point of view, but I also appreciated the foreword there by Cecil Murphy, a wonderful author who we've had here on Harvest, who also went through the same thing. So can some of these principles go either way, whether the victim is a male or a female, in dealing with this through adulthood?
Yeah, I really believe so. There are commonalities that this is just what sexual abuse does. Shame, deep shame, abandonment. You are alone because you have a secret, and so you step back from the world and you don't interact. Fears, weird idiosyncrasies that triggers and flashbacks, all that. Post-traumatic stress disorder. We're so aware of it with our Vietnam vets or our soldiers, but survivors of abuse have similar things, the smell of perfume, the smell of freshly mowed grass.
Yeah.
You never know. And so, yes, tons of commonalities, and a male could read that and find help for himself as well.
Do you feel like sometimes you still, in some small way, have to deal with this, or was there a moment when you felt like, for you, that you finally laid this to rest?
You know, it's a process, and certainly I still will face certain things. The bulk of my heart and my core, I know I'm healed, I'm whole. Even when I was writing that, it's like, God, you've just done such a wonderful work. I have to remember what that felt like. And yet at the same time, it's still very real. And so there are certain things where I'll say, you know what, I'm triggered right now, and I know this is my stuff.
Yeah.
So just let me process this.
Yeah.
And
I have
so,
to
yes.
imagine whether you're a victim or a spouse trying to help that victim, the most important thing to remember is stay the course. Because it's obviously a difficult process to heal, and it's a difficult process for somebody on the outside, even if that person on the outside is as close as the spouse, to help the person who's trying to heal.
Yes, and I would like to say stay the course doesn't mean status quo. If you're in a relationship and you're struggling, don't accept it, get help. God wants to heal it and bring you together.
Well, powerful, powerful stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dawn
you.
Scott Jones. If you'd like to connect with her, you can go to dawnjones.org, or as always, you can go to our website for an easy link back to her website. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more Harvest Show coming your way.